Okay, the mash is done. So now I'm going to transfer to my cook kettle. I do everything gravity through my entire process. So I drain from my mash tun through gravity into my cook kettle. So I'm going to start that process now. I always take a pull off of the initial pull off the stout because just any particulate, this has a false bottom in it, works really well, but I still want to get out, any of that initial material that I don't put in my cook kettle. Plus, I always like to drink at every stage of the process. I like to drink the beer. So what I'm gonna do now, just gonna go ahead and open that up. All right, you can see there's a little bit of material there. Not a big deal. This one the cook kettle has a false bottom in it too. So at the end of the day, you can see that there's quite a bit of material in there. Just get that initial stuff out. But I also don't want to waste anything. But oh yeah, that tastes good. It's sweet. You can taste all the sugar in it. That will be fermented out. That's good stuff. I'm definitely gonna finish that. So now I use silicone tubing for everything. I want this to be as gentle as possible. I want it to, drain into my cook kettle. So this reaches all the way down into the bottom. And I will start off slow to let I want to let the bed of grain settle as much as possible. Because I really just want, you just want liquid, as much liquid as you can possibly get. Oh, that looks great. I wish you could smell that too. It smells really good. The barley smells great. The corn adds something to it that is just amazing. Oh yeah. We're on our way now. All right, that's draining out. It'll drain down, and then I have my sparge water, which is to basically rinse it, and to rinse the grain, get every last bit out I can. I have this it's at 170 degrees, the sparge water. I don't have any fancy system. I'm not having a sparge system on there or whatever. I just as gently as possible without disturbing the bed of grain, I will pour it over the top once this is down, once the majority of it's all drained out. And that's how I do it. Nothing, like I always say, nothing to obsess over. Just trying to prevent as much material not getting into your cook kettle. So you just want as much liquid as possible. That's where we're at there. I'll let that drain for a minute. It's looking good. All right. Okay, it's drained out mostly. So now I'm going to go ahead and rinse or sparge. Said this is the water's about 170 degrees. That will maintain, it's ending the whole process. The whole mash process is complete. Just rinsing, and I want to get every last bit of converted sugar out of that grain into my cook kettle. So, like I said, I don't obsess over this. I just go ahead and I rinse. I have a pretty solid grain bed here. It's a lot of material. Like I said, it's, this was 23 pounds of grain. So, and, about 13 gallons of water originally when I did my mash. So, I don't disturb the bed too much by doing this. This is about 3 gallons of water that I'm using. I don't usually deal with stuck sparge as much. This has a nice false bottom in it. It is a little slow now. I don't mind. What I do is I don't want to stir it up and really mess the whole bed up, but I don't have any problem. Just kind of gently just putting some holes in it to help it drain, because it wants to stick a little bit. When you mill your grain, if you really mill it too fine, you can have more problems with stuck sparges like this. But this is not too bad. It's draining. just do this a little bit in different places just to give it room to work through, because I'm not going to give up all this wonderful sugar that's still in there. It's filling up nicely. And the goal here is, with this extra water through the sparge and through the rinses, I'm going to get my cook kettle as full as possible. I'm trying to, because through the boil, I'm going to lose water, and my end goal is 11 gallons. So I want to get this up to at least 12, so a gallon can boil off. But it's nice to get it up to about 13 gallons, and then it will cook down and boil off. The goal is 11 gallons. And I really like all gravity. I don't use pumps or anything. I've used them in the past, but I gravity feed into this. Then I just need help from a family member or a friend. It's the only part of the process that I need help, which is to lift the full cook kettle back up onto the burner. That's the hardest part, but it's not too bad. We lift it up on there, and then ultimately what I've done too, when we move to fermenting, I gravity feed into my fermenter that's in my basement. So all gravity fed, no pumps. All right, that looks like it's just about there. Next we'll be boiling. All right, we have a boil. It's going great. This is my favorite part when we get going with this. I mean, it just smells so good. Smelling it cook. But you have to be really careful when you're getting it going. When you want to get a hot break, I think is what they call it. But when you start to boil, it can start really vigorous, very beginning part. So you have to be careful of not boiling over. I usually use mash paddle to gently stir along the top of the foam and help it dissipate and blow on it and everything else to try to prevent it from doing it. But now it's boiling nice. It's a nice, good rolling boil, and I'm going to boil for 30 minutes, and then I'm going to add Cascade hops for another 30 minutes as a bittering agent, and then the last 30 minutes, then I will boil it another 30 minutes, and I will add Galaxy hops, and then that'll be it. I'll cook it for an hour and a half. Some say that's not necessary to go that long. I like to do it. Anyway, with this particular style beer, I'm not trying to hop it heavy. I don't want it to drastically affect the flavor. Just mainly some bittering hops to cut the sweet down so it's not too sweet, and then the Galaxy hops I use a little bit. I like it's got hints of citrus in it, and I like that with the cream corn ale. I really want the malt to come through in flavor. I don't want it to be over hopped. This type of beer, some might even say it's boring. Those who want to do all these wild, crazy recipes, and people tend to like really hopped beer. That's fine, to each his own. I'm not a big fan of over hopped beer. I want some of that corn flavor to come through, and it's fantastic. It doesn't need any overpowering hop. So here we go, first 30 minutes, and then we'll start the process of adding hops, and awesome. Okay, it's been 30 minutes, so now in goes the Cascade hops. I'm just using pellets right now. I do have whole hops from some friends that have grown them. I'm going to be growing them myself as well. The pellets, it's really easy, to be honest. It's really easy to measure amount out. So there's the bittering hops. So I'm going to cook that for another 30 minutes. All right, another 30 minutes has passed. So I'm going to add in the Galaxy hops and cook it for another 30 minutes. Smells really good with the hops added to it. All right. After about 15 minutes, I'll add the Warlock to help bring all the proteins together, and hot side findings, basically, to help, ensure clear beer in the end. So, all right, almost there. Okay, 15 minutes left, so I'm going to put 2 Whirlfloc in and some refined Kerrigan, which will help settle down proteins and such. So you get a nice clear beer. It's hot side findings. All right, I'll let that go for 15 more minutes, and then I'm going to chill it. Okay, time's up. It's cooked plenty. So, flame out. Now, all right, so I want to cool it as quick as possible. So I have a copper coil. It's a nice large one that works well with this. I've got it all sanitized. I'm going to put it in, and this recirculates water through the coil, which will cool it down. I have a garden hose hooked to it out back, and then my return line goes into my swimming pool. So that water, as it cycles through to cool it down, goes back into my pool, at least. So to kind of salvage that water. All right. This guy's gonna go right down in there. I'm gonna turn the water on. All right. Oh, that's getting hot already. I'll set that guy right there. Fully submerged. You can never sanitize too much, especially at this phase. So I'm going to just do that, and then I put a little cover on there, just a little bit, and watch my temperature gauge. I want to get it down to probably 68 degrees will be fine. I might get it down to 66. We'll see how long it takes. And next step will be to gravity feed it down to my fermenter. So I'm going to take some time to cool this wort as fast as possible. Okay, the beer, I got it down to about 67 degrees. That's good enough. That's fine. It will warm up a little bit, especially in the beginning parts of fermentation. But now I'm gravity feeding it down from my cook kettle. After I cooled it down, I have it on the ledge over there in the stairwell, and I have it hooked up. And now, as you can see, I'm filling my fermenter. So I do it this way I like to. This is a good way for me to agitate it too. Now that it's cooled down, and I want to aerate it before I pitch the yeast. I boiled off a little bit more water than I would like. I think it looks a little shy. It might not quite be 11 gallons, but that's fine. It's going to be amazing either way. And this is my just standard conical fermenter. It's a 14-gallon fermenter. It can hold this no problem. Of course, I already cleaned and sanitized and everything before. So now we're just filling it up. Okay, so the fermenter's filled, and I can see where the level is. It's well over my 10-gallon mark. It's not quite to the 12-gallon mark. It looks like it's just about right. I think I nailed it. 11 gallons. That's about what it looks like. So I'm going to take my sample to take my initial gravity reading before I pitch the yeast. I tend to take a pretty big sample. It's easier to read, and I'm going to drink that too. So I set it off to the side. Then for the first time, I'm trying Clarity Firm by White Labs. I want to give it a shot. It's supposed to help significantly reduce gluten and chill haze. So it's a finding to clarify the beer out, as well as, hey, why not remove some gluten? I don't necessarily have any big issue against it, but some people do have reactions to it, and with different autoimmune diseases and stuff. So I figure, why not remove the gluten while I'm at it, and let's see if I'm not going to claim it's going to be gluten free, but it's supposed to significantly reduce it. But it's going to help clarify the beer, hopefully, as well. So directions say to add it right in at the same time that you're pitching your yeast. So in it goes. And now I do collect my own yeast, and I wash it, I store it, I split it up for new batches. I'm out of anything right now. That the stuff I have is pretty old, so I wanted to go ahead and just start fresh. So I got 400 billion cells, and I'm going with Imperial Flagship. It's a real clean, clean yeast. It's going to operate well at these temperatures just fine. I got it to 67. It probably initially will get over 70 degrees, but that's fine. This basement is perfect. It stays, I don't know, 64, 65 degrees in here pretty consistently. I can open the vents and change the temperature down here, but I just keep it cool. And I will ferment for 2 weeks. There is significant savings of salvaging, collecting, washing and reusing your yeast. It works just fine. It works great. You just make a starter with it. And I mean, if you figure on a batch of beer this size, if you end up spending $30 on yeast, there's 88 pints and 11 gallons of beer. So, what is that, like 34 cents a pint more cost you, or you could save that. So in a different video, I'll go over all the costs and everything. Clearly, brewing beer yourself is way more affordable. First of all, it's awesome, and way cheaper than buying commercially brewed beer. And you control the whole thing. Always sanitizing at this point. Sand star in there. All right, folks, well, that's about it. Cap this. And tomorrow this will be bubbling. It doesn't take long. So then we wait. And then, of course, I will keg it up. It's been 2 weeks. So the beer is done fermenting. And I've got my kegs cleaned, ready to go. I just filled them with CO2 because I like to fill up the tank. So when I drain from the fermenter into the kegs, I don't do a true closed system, but that way I don't oxygenate it. The CO2 stays in the tank and pushes out as the beer goes in, and because I don't want to oxygenate it. That seems to work fine. I've never had any problem with it. I know some people obsess a little bit more over it. I may go closed system at some point, but here we go. Gonna fill enough. It looks like it's a little over 11 gallons, which is perfect. So 5.5 gallons in each keg. And I've already taken my gravity reading, my sample anyway. I'll calculate it later. Goal now is to keep this kegged. This is how I do it. I've just done it this way for years, and it works just fine. Here we go. It's a really nice color. It smells great. The fermenting process went really well. I just hold it up so that it doesn't splash around too much in there, even though this still has a cloud of CO2 in it. I still don't want it to splash. All right, that's filling nicely. I can see the haze of the cloud of CO2 all in the top, slowly pushing itself out. So definitely don't want to oxygenate the beer. So that is filling. I'll fill this one all the way up, and then I move on to filling the next one. And then I will put these under pressure. I'll force carbonate them. I'll put it under like 30 PSI. And once it's in and under pressure too, I will rock them back and forth. It helps to really force the CO2 in it. Do that for 2 or 3 days, but probably after a day or two, probably after 2 days, I'll go ahead and put them in my kegerator and put them under high pressure too, so that I can start to cold crash it. Per se, it's not a true cold crash, but then I'll let it sit, and then I'll turn the pressure down, check it, and as it cools, it will clarify. All right, that's it for that one, and I'll do the next one, and all right, thanks for watching.